Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. My name is Ijama. I'm your host. And with me today, I have Brooke. Brooke is the shop owner of Earth, Water, Soul on Etsy. And Brooke opened her shop on October 23rd, 2013. So she's a relatively new seller, and I'm really excited to talk to Brooke today. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Joma.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for joining me today.
Great.
All right. So the new thing I'm doing is asking a trivia question. And I asked Brooke before we started the recording what category she wanted her trivia question to be, and Brooke picked where in the world. So Brooke's question, here you go. You ready?
I'm ready.
Good. All right. In what country is the world's tallest building? And it's multiple choice. I'll give you your choices. Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, Tokyo, or United Arab Emirates?
D, the fourth one, United Emirates.
Yeah. Do you know what it's called?
I don't.
How did you know that?
Well, I was actually going to go there last summer. We were talking about it until we realized it was 115 degrees every day. And I remember seeing something about it, the tallest building, but I can't remember the name.
Yeah, it's the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. Yeah, I knew that, and I picked that question because when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this is good because I love The Amazing Race. And this season, which just ended, so I'm kind of sad. They went there. Oh, was it? It was this season. They went there, and you know that how they make them. I don't know if you watch the show, but they make them do all kinds of crazy things when they go to the different countries. And so they went there this season, and that's how I learned that. Before this season of Amazing Race, I would not have known the answer to that question.
I have seen that show. I don't follow it, but I do love all the adventures they go on.
Oh, yeah. It's my dream one day to go on The Amazing Race. I'd probably be the first to get kicked out, but I'll try. All right. So Brooke sells vegan jewelry, bohemian vegan jewelry. And Brooke, can you just tell us more about what you sell in your Etsy shop?
Well, it's bohemian style, mostly beaded. I have a lot of bracelets. I'm kind of a bracelet junkie. I have some necklaces, a couple earrings, which I'd like to do more of. And then I have some Roman glass. Herkimer diamonds are something that I love. And as far as being vegan, I don't use any animal products. I don't use bone or fur, feathers, coral. Horn even. I mean, I have purchased a couple of beads and then realized later that they were animals, so I decided not to use them.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
no,
go ahead. No, I was going to ask, so I was curious about that. Do most beads and gemstones, well, not gemstones, I guess, but beads, are they made from animal byproducts? Or
I would say most aren't.
Okay.
But there's so much like mother of pearl and a lot of coral.
Oh, yes. Okay. I get it. Okay.
Horn, things that, you wouldn't, sometimes I don't even know unless I ask the owner of where I'm purchasing it from. So I just like to be aware of that. It's just, I can still find a lot of materials that I love that aren't, animal byproducts.
Oh, good. Is it hard to source, raw materials that don't use animal byproducts?
No, it's not. It's more of that I don't always know.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes there'll be an old bead and it has a little fleck of red in it. And now I'm learning that a lot of times it's coral, but it won't always say. So I just have to do a lot of asking.
Okay. And
as far as gemstones, there's nothing animal there.
Okay. Because gemstones are naturally occurring in the earth.
For the most part, a lot of stuff is man-made too, as well, like hematite and pyrite. I mean, they may be found in the earth, but sometimes they're processed man-made now.
Okay. And just help me clarify. So, mother of pearl comes from oyster. I know that.
And yeah, and from shell. So
And from
there's
shells. Okay.
yeah. So I guess the oyster would be the animal that
Yeah.
you be affecting.
Okay. And where does coral come from? I know it's in the sea somewhere, but what's
Um,
the origin of coral?
I mean, as far they're in coral reefs, I mean, it's considered an animal. Um,
Oh.
yeah, and I walked into a shop the other day, and it was just walls of coral and shell. And I'm like, I think the store in itself just took out half the ocean. uh,
I know, nightmare.
I mean, it's beautiful, but I
Yeah, it
just
is.
stay away from it.
Yeah, okay. Good to know. So, when did you first discover Etsy?
I did not. I mean, I may have heard about it before, but I'd never looked at it until 2011. And I'm pretty late in the game. I know they've been around for several years, but I was just, when I first went on it, I was just blown away by the artists and all these just unusual handcrafted items, these little stuffed monsters and wooden forest creatures handmade from like balsa wood and just really beautiful jewelry. And I really was just blown away by it and decided I really want to do this.
Oh, yes. I know when I first discovered Etsy, I think I spent more time looking at the pictures on Etsy because it's so visual and you just get drawn into the pictures and then you realize the creativity that goes, behind those. People are actually making these things, and that's how your shop looks to me. I'm like, she sits down and makes all these things. It impresses me all the time when I see what people make.
I know I'm the same way. I mean, I'm still am. I'm always looking on the site at other people's work, and buying. I try to support Etsy and buy gifts for family or friends
Hmm.
through Etsy, and it's just because everything's so different and unique, and you see
Yeah,
things I wouldn't even think of to make.
I know. I learn new crafts based on what people are selling on Etsy. Not that I practice the craft, but I learn about, the existence of different types of crafts because of Etsy. So how did you learn to make jewelry?
I watching a lot of YouTube videos.
I love
Um,
it.
I mean, in retrospect, wish I'd taken some classes because it would have sped the process up a bit. But I pretty much just taught myself. I have a friend, she does some beading. She helped me a little bit, but mostly just trial and error, a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
And even when I go to some of the bead shops, I'll ask them, if I'm having a problem with the clasp or something, I'll ask them, what they do. And so kind of in a grassroots way, I guess.
Yeah. What
And
drew
I'm
you,
still learning. I mean, there's still techniques I want to learn how to do. I want to learn how to solder and,
oh yeah, yeah.
and take it a step further.
What drew you into crafting to begin with? Have you always just had that bug?
Not really. I mean, I've always been creative. I was more on the music and writing end, but um, I guess just trying to have something creative to do every day, or at
Yeah.
least every week. I started out doing loom knitting, which that's what my site was originally going to be. It was to be these little hats and things for children's animals and dolls.
Mm.
Until I realized I'm really not a knitter. And yeah, I've always made jewelry, earrings as a hobby, and decided, people would compliment it, and so I just decided to keep doing it. I love it. I've become obsessed with beads, so that's what
Yes.
keeps me going with it.
Well, it's good to be obsessed with what you're doing. It keeps you going.
Yeah, it can be pretty bad. I have to stay away from bead shops sometimes because there's no way I'm going to walk out without something.
That's like me and bookstores. I will stop at every single bookstore I see, just and I have to leave with a book. So yeah, I get it. Can be
Yeah,
hard on the
bookstores
pocket.
have that effect too.
Yeah. Now, what inspired you to open an Etsy shop?
I just loved doing it so much, and there's only so much jewelry you can give your family and friends.
Before
Before
they start rejecting it?
and I just thought it'd be a way to make some money, and it's just so much fun. I mean, I knew it would be work, and you don't really realize how much until you start setting up the actual site. But I
Yeah.
enjoyed every step of it, except I will say the photography part. That was very frustrating, and I'm still learning to get to improve my photos. But I just to I just wanted to be part of it.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad you brought up the pictures because are you teaching yourself? Are you taking tutorials? How are you improving on your photography? Not that it's bad now. I think it's good. But what are you doing to improve on that?
Originally, I was again going on YouTube, going on Etsy conversations. Um, I'd, my brother and boyfriend they're into photography, so they gave me some hints. I had made my own light box. That was interesting until I realized a light box that made my stuff look worse than natural light. Um,
Yes.
Again, a lot of trial and error. At first my pictures were terrible, and then they've gotten better. But I'm going to be going to the Southwest over the holidays, so I'm bringing all my jewelry, and I'm going to re-photograph everything. The light's just so much better.
Oh,
Um, so we'll see. I mean, I think probably for anyone on Etsy, if they aren't already, skilled at photography, I'm sure a class might help.
yeah. Now I noticed that in your pictures you use a lot of wood in the background. Is there a reason? Do you think the wood helps to bring out the jewelry that you make?
The reason I use the wood is I like sort of that dark, sort of rustic style,
Okay.
and I wanted to have a uniform look to my site.
Okay.
I know a lot of people use more of a white background, and I think those pictures look beautiful. But for sort of the vibe I was going for, I wanted more of the wood look. Now I think sometimes the wood does pop the jewelry, and I think sometimes depending on the color of the piece, it actually detracts from it. So that's something I'm gonna be working on over the holidays. Um, Maybe using different color wood. I've noticed like oxidized copper pops out some of the gemstones. I
Yeah.
mean, it's trial and error again. Like sometimes, depending on the gemstone or the colors I'm using, I have to experiment with different backgrounds because what one works for one then doesn't work for the other.
Right, I agree because I'm looking at the pictures and some of them look stunning against the wood and some of them look like they're kind of blending into it or
Yeah,
you don't really get the full effect of the colors or the style or just the shapes because of the wood. So yeah, but it works for some. It really does.
I guess my goal is to make it work for all of it and then still have a uniform or not uniform. I guess uniform is not the right word. Just to kind of keep the flavor of what I want my site to be, that sort of earthy look.
Yeah. That's one of the nice things about selling on Etsy. You're constantly learning new things, not just your craft, but other peripheral things that have to do with having an online shop.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I've learned, I mean, it's from the social media part, which is very new
Oh
to
my goodness, yes.
and then just even getting the banner the correct size. So, that is new to me. The photography, you're right. You're constantly learning new things that you really wouldn't think of just with jewelry making.
Yeah. So outside of Etsy, do you have a job?
I write.
Oh, nice.
I do some voiceover work here and there. I freelance working with college students on essays and editing them, and sometimes academic papers. So I do a little here and there.
Oh, okay. Oh, if I knew you did voiceover, I might have had you do my intro.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So, how do you manage your time with all that going on and your
I'm pretty
Etsy shop?
organized.
Okay.
Pretty organized person. I mean, when I'm actually making the jewelry, time becomes a vacuum, and that's where I do kind of get lost in time and organization. But for the most part, I'm pretty organized. I try to do most of my stuff in the first half of the day when I'm raring to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it hasn't really been a problem yet.
Okay. So I know your shop's only been open since October, so it's relatively new. Is it
Hmm.
profitable yet? Are you seeing substantial revenue from your shop?
Not yet.
Okay.
But every time I make a sale, it's very exciting and fun.
I know,
Uh,
isn't it?
I mean, a lot of this, I had a lot of beads before I even decided to open Etsy store. So it's kind of hard for me to add everything up and figure out profit at this point. I
Yeah.
think moving forward, it'll be different because I will be purchasing new beads and new items and and then I can figure out the actual profit, but not of yet, hopefully
Yeah.
soon.
And honestly, I think it's still early to be looking to be profitable right now,
Yes.
because I think at this point you're probably going to be reinvesting what you make back into your Etsy business.
Yes.
And it takes some time to get to profitability anyway, so stay on
Every time I
track.
make a sale, I go out and buy more beads.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. What inspires you to create?
Um, uh, Color definitely. Um, when I go into a store, the beads themselves or the materials themselves tend to inspire me. I
Mhm.
there are times I'll go in with this, particular idea in mind, but a lot of times I'll go in and see some beads I haven't seen before, and that the creativity just goes flying at that point, especially when they're old beads.
Yeah.
Just got some 19th century Nigerian hand cast double layer beads. Just knowing there's this history in these materials and the people who made them aren't even around anymore. That is exciting to me, and that inspires me. I love the old techniques that are sometimes still in use, and like the Hill Tribe silver, which is these teeny tiny 1 millimeter beads are handmade. I have no idea how they do it.
Wow.
They're so small.
Impressive.
I don't know. Mixing old and new inspires me.
Yeah. I'm just going to backtrack a bit just
Sure.
because I saw the the Nigerian bead necklace that you have, and I don't think I told you this, but I'm originally from Nigeria, and I thought,
Oh my gosh.
how did she get those beads? And so I spent some time looking at that, but then I didn't want to focus on that because it's not about me.
Oh
So,
no, but
but
that's interesting. I
that
didn't
that
know.
is interesting. Um, so do you see a color, or you can look at beads and then you see what it's going to become in your mind's eye?
Yeah, so color especially. I mean, I love blue, so I have a lot of stuff that's blue,
Hmm.
blues and greens. I have to sort of force myself to use other colors because I realize not the rest of the world does not just like blue.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'll see the color, just the size of the bead. I love raw beads, especially like the sort of more brushed, older, like the Indian and Afghani beads.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just start picturing the colors together, the materials together. A lot of
Okay.
times I'll take the beads and when I'm shopping and wrap them around my wrist to see what they look like.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's always interesting to hear people's creative um process. How often do you find yourself going out to look for new beads to make something new?
Probably every week. I'm going today, actually. Um,
Woohoo.
it depends. I mean, it depends. There might be a couple weeks I don't go at all. I have sort of my staple stores where I buy strands from, and then I have a little bit more like eclectic not upscale, but just they're less about just going in and purchasing some strands as opposed to, this whole it's like a shopping experience for
Hmm.
lack of a better word. Um, I go probably almost every week, or sometimes I'm just out and I pass a bead store and there I go.
Yeah, yeah. Do you spend time looking at shops of other Etsy sellers that sell items similar to what you do?
If I do, it's less about like competition than just a lot of times I'll look at their photographs.
Hmm.
I've even, sent them conversations and asked them, how did you get your photographs looking so good? Did you use a light box? I couldn't tell, or did you do this outside?
Hmm.
So I look at them a lot for that reason. Um, but I'm not competitive as
Right.
far as like as a person. I don't really feel. I mean, I know there's. I guess technically there's competition on the site, but I don't feel it at all.
Yeah, I
Um,
think in a sense it's different on Etsy because most people like who are creating are making one of a kind items. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think the competition is your traditional like competition in the traditional sense where you're selling the exact same thing. So it's
Mhm.
between you and someone else because what you make is going to look different from what the next person makes. But have you found that if you reach out to someone to ask for help, say with photography or what have you, that they've been open and receptive to helping?
Yes. Anyone that I have sent a conversation to has been helpful, really helpful. That's what I love about the site. Everyone's so positive. Everyone's so willing to help you out. There's no competitive feel to it. I've joined some of the Etsy groups, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, everyone just seems really supportive.
Yeah, that's I find the same thing personally, and when I talk to other sellers, is people just want to help other people, and it just fosters a nicer selling environment because you just don't always feel like you're in competition with everyone else.
And when I see people's sales, I'm really excited for them. I'm like, that is so great. I mean,
Hmm.
they're, some of the higher selling shops, I imagine, that's their career. That's all they're doing. And it's inspiring to me.
Yeah. Do you aspire to one day do Etsy full time?
I would love to. I mean, but if I don't, I'm happy with doing it part time as well. I just like being a part of it. It keeps me creative all the time. Um, it's just exciting to see sales and stats. It's always interesting to me to see that someone from the Philippines or Romania or Croatia has viewed my item.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
That always blows my mind.
I know. And then do you sometimes picture who that person is or what they were doing when they were looking at your, how they ended up looking at your bracelet or something like that?
I know.
Yeah, like what were they doing and how did they find me?
I know. It sometimes I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned joining Etsy groups. Do you belong to a number of Etsy teams?
I belong to New York Dreamers and
Yes.
Animal Ethical, and then Young, Dumb, and Broke New York City. I love that name. And I've had some conversations with the people at Animal Ethical. They're very very supportive.
Yeah.
I'd like to join some more groups. I'd like to get in on some of the groups, the New York groups where they come together and do the shows. I know there's an Etsy booth down in one of the holiday festivals in New York, and I just think that's really a cool way for everyone to come together and help each other out. And some of those booths are very expensive, so if they come together, then everybody gets to a little bit of piece of it. And
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say, look into that and doing and into being a part of that. I'm in San Francisco and there's a group, it's called SF Etsy, and I know this weekend they're having um a holiday craft fair, and there's been just so much build up to it, and I think it's really great because everyone is just banding together. I'm not selling at the craft fair. I was just going to attend it because I want to go and support the sellers and just see what they're doing. And I think it's so nice how the group has really just congealed together. Everyone is very supportive of each other and helping to promote each other's shops and what each other is selling. They're talking about it on Twitter. They're talking about it on Facebook. And so it looks like it starts tomorrow, but it seems like, there's going to be a really good turnout. So yeah, if you can get plugged into a local group that meets in person and does things in person, go for it.
yeah, thank you. No, I didn't know they were having that in San Francisco. That's really great.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll do very well.
Yeah, I think the San Francisco group is really has been established for a while. I just discovered it not that long ago, and it seems like they've been going for a while. So I would imagine in the New York area, there probably is an established group like that too. I think metro areas tend to be progressive like that.
Definitely. And I also think I've seen at some of the craft fairs, I've seen Etsy booths, but I didn't know until I joined Etsy that they were Etsy. So it's nice to have some of my favorite shops, and then I walk around the fair and see them. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's you guys.
Yeah, I know. So have you had any bad experiences so far yet on Etsy?
No, I haven't had any. Luckily, nope.
Yeah, good. Well, just FYI, sometimes they're inevitable. It just comes with the territory of selling online. But yeah, so okay, you haven't had any, so you haven't had to deal with any disputes. So far, how would you say selling on Etsy has changed your life? Well,
Well, definitely, it definitely keeps me creative all the time. And I mean, again, I've always been pretty creative, but not always practicing it. And I feel like since I've done the Etsy site, I almost feel like I have to make stuff every day, even if it doesn't end up on the Etsy site. And so in that sense, it's almost like an obsession.
yeah, it has
but
you
it's also,
creating every day.
almost. And the days I don't, I feel really like where I need to. But you can't do it every day. Sometimes, I mean, my next step, I have to kind of get into more of the social media stuff, the stuff that's not really my thing,
Right.
but needs to be. But it's also given me this realization that you can, make and sell your own stuff. It's sort of making the possibility a reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think one of the good things, the nice things about selling on Etsy is most people who are there are creative, and it keeps you in your hobby as opposed to making it always feel like work. You're actually doing something that you would have fun doing anyway.
That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you have to factor in your time, but it's never feels like work.
Yeah. Oh, I had a question for you, which I meant to ask earlier. So your shop name, Earth, Water, Soul, is that soul as in sun?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you pick soul as opposed to sun?
It's my daughter's middle name.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And I like the sound of it too. My shop was originally to be called Earth Water, and there's another shop called that. And I like to kind of blend different parts of my life together, and I love water and earthy anything, nature, and then to put in my daughter's middle name just made it more special.
nice. I like it. How do you promote your shop?
Well, so far, it's just I've been word of mouth with friends, but promoting my shop really is my next step. I got it up and running, and I really need to. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not really. I just got on it. I've never been a Facebooker, so it's very new to me, and I know for most people, it's actually kind of it's been around for a long time, but it's my next step is promoting my shop.
Okay. Yeah.
I haven't done a lot. I mean, it's mostly been just like I said, word of mouth.
Do your friends and family get tired of you talking about your Etsy shop?
Not I. Well, maybe my boyfriend does. I don't know. Probably. I don't think so. I mean, I will. This is a little off subject, but I just think this is very funny. I was talking to my mom about the shop and mentioning, it's bohemian, it's vegan, and she stopped and she looked at me and she didn't understand the vegan part of it. She goes, I don't understand. People don't eat jewelry. Like, Mom, it's beyond that. I just thought that was really funny.
Love it. Yeah.
I don't know if they're sick of me talking about it. They haven't said so.
That's funny. Well, it's only been since October, so it's still
Yeah.
yeah. You're still in the honeymoon phase, and I'm still very excited. I like
Yes.
that, though. You know, it's funny. The thought did kind of cross my mind when I saw that you sell vegan jewelry. I didn't think, well, people don't eat it, but I thought, well, um, I can't remember I, what a thought ran across my mind, like, well, does it mean that if you're not vegan, that maybe I, I was trying to understand it. So I'm glad you explained that, because I don't want to say I thought you don't eat jewelry, but I probably did. I probably did think the same thing too.
I just thought it was funny. I love it.
Yeah. So social media, that's on your plate to learn how to do.
Yes, I'm behind the times. It's just never been my thing. I like I said, I never had Facebook. Um, like Pinterest, and so I just they're all foreign to me. So I'm needing to catch up on that. And some of my friends have Facebook, so they put my site on their Facebook page.
Oh, nice.
It's just learning curve.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. As I sit here, I have 2 books on Twitter I need to read because I'm no Twitter pro. Facebook, I'm on Facebook, and mainly for, I mainly do my personal Facebooking, and I'm not really even that active on Facebook. When I show up, people are like, "Oh, you came on, it's been months," and I'm like, "Yeah." But I realize it is important to be out there, especially for the podcast, just getting the word out, and helping to promote the shows and other people's shops. So I'm learning how to be better at doing promotions on Etsy. Not Etsy, on Facebook. Pinterest, I don't even have an account, but I have a book. I think I have more books about social media than social media accounts. So don't worry, you're not the only one. There is a learning curve there. But it seems like for today's economy, selling online, it's essential.
Definitely, because I feel like you can have great stuff, but if nobody knows where or who you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have a website or a blog?
I have my website is earthwatersoul.com, but it goes straight to Etsy.
Okay.
I'd eventually like to do a blog. I'd like to add in sort of the histories of some of the beads, or the process of how they're made, where they come from, that type of thing. Because I think when someone buys something, well, at least for myself, if I buy something, it just makes it that much more special if there's a story behind it. So I would like to do a blog that, gives a little bit more information on where I get my beads, some of the sellers, even where they travel, because I think their lives are pretty interesting. Some of these sellers who go all over the world and bring beads back, that kind of thing.
I think that would be great. I love reading stories behind behind the crafts or behind the items. And I think if you were to talk about the beads and the history of the beads, I think people would connect so much more with that, than just looking at the picture and the description. So yeah, I would, if I can encourage you, I would say go for it, do it, even if it means starting on WordPress.com or Blogspot. I know a lot of Etsy sellers have Blogspot blogs where you don't have to invest anything financially, but you can talk about it, and just it helps. Stories help sell products. Bottom line, stories sell. Yeah.
It's true. It helps me buy them.
Yeah, it helps me buy them too. Yes. Yeah. So right now, about how much time does your Etsy shop take each week?
I would say it varies. When I was setting up my shop, I was working on it every day, almost every day at least.
Mm-hmm.
Now, It really varies. I don't know. I mean, I'd say some days I'll decide to just make pieces, so I'll give the whole day to that because then I'll make them in the first half of the day, and then the light is better in my apartment in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll photograph them. So that could be 8 hours. But it just really depends.
Okay. So you said when you first started, you were working on Etsy every day. So do you feel like now you have a bit more balance where it's not consuming your time every single day of the week?
Yes, because when I started, I was reading, you really should have a decent amount of items in your shop. I mean, I could have opened with, I guess, 25. I think I opened with, I can't remember, maybe 60, which is still considered pretty low.
Whoa.
And
But considering you made everything, that's a lot.
I know. I guess I was going by what other people were saying about their sites, and once they had more items, they got more views and more sales. So I just kept increasing it. And so in the beginning, it was kind of an everyday thing.
Okay. Do you ever make treasuries on Etsy?
I've only done one, but I love them. I
Yeah.
think I love them. I need to take more time to do that.
I tell myself the same thing too. I like looking at treasuries, and I've also only made one. Um, but I loved creating it because you get to just jump around, and you can get creative with the treasuries you make. You can do colors, you can do shapes and whatnot. I love looking at other people's treasuries.
I know, I do too. They're so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I don't know exactly what the theory is behind it, but from what I understand, what I've seen and read on Etsy, I guess treasuries help to sell products if you're featured in one.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think it would help for people to at least come look and
Mm.
then, potentially buy something. And then the idea is you can't put, as you probably already know, you can't put your own item in a
Yeah.
treasury. So, um, and anytime you make one, you're helping to promote other people's
Somebody else.
work too.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about it is it gets you out there, it gets you looking at other people's what other people are doing, and I think that helps to foster that sense of community in Etsy because you're highlighting what somebody else is doing. You're talking about somebody else. It's not just about you, and I think that just really helps the community, the Etsy community.
Definitely, I agree. Hmm.
Have you developed any new relationships or business friendships through Etsy?
I would say some relationships as far as where I purchase beads, since I tend to go every week, they know who I am. And then, some, I'd say relationships with people on Etsy, just sort of friendly. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I like your item, that kind of thing. Or with the animal ethical group, I've
Yeah.
gone back and forth with them. You try to feature, like, well, I've only done the one. I have some draft treasuries that are in the process. I haven't finished them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess like in that sense, I think if I end up meeting more people in New York who do Etsy, then I'd have, more where you're hanging out with them and
Yeah.
interfacing with them.
Yeah.
And actually one customer who likes my stuff, she and I have, just friendliness mostly.
Yeah. Great. Have you, again, I know you just opened in October, but between then and now, you're still in the honeymoon phase. Have you ever wanted to quit or close your shop?
No,
Great.
nope. I
Yeah.
did want to hire a photographer.
Wait, hire or fire?
Hire
Oh, okay. Yeah.
or fire myself as
Okay, good, good. Yeah, so you're still enjoying it. That's always good to
oh my
hear.
God, I love it. It's so much fun.
So when you get a new idea for something that you want to create, how long does it take you to get from idea to execution to listing it?
Pretty quickly, as long as I have the materials. I mean, most of the materials I buy in the city, but then there are some I also order. I mean, I'd ordered some stuff. I think it came from maybe Singapore. I didn't even realize how far away it took 3 weeks to get here. But pretty quickly, I mean, a lot of times the idea will come to me when I'm in the store. So I'll buy the material and go home that day or the next day and make something.
Okay. So do you oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
I was going to say, do you keep a stock of raw materials that you use or supplies on hand, or do you buy and then make, finish, then go and buy some more and then make, finish, all that? How do you do it?
A little of both. I'd say I have a small stock.
Okay.
So if somebody orders it, I have it. But since some of the materials I buy out of the city, I would need to keep in stock more. I wouldn't want to be in a position where someone orders it and then I have to have it FedExed from Seattle or wherever.
Right.
So I have a little of both. I mean, sometimes it's a little of both of what you're describing.
Okay. Now, one thing about your sales is you donate 10% of all your sales to a different charity every month.
I just started that for December.
Okay, tell me more.
My goal was to start in October, but I wanted to get up and running and then make sure I got the permission from the organization that I was going to first use. I want to give 10%. I'm going to start out with giving it to animal organizations. The first organization is called the Animal Project. It's here in New York City, and they're a rescue and adoption organization for kitties. Aww. And I volunteer for them, and I see how much hard work they put in and the good that they're doing. So for December, I'm going to give 10% of my sales to them, and then January. I'd like to mix it up each month.
Right. How do you pick which charities you want to support?
Well, for this month, I chose Animal Project because I volunteer with them, and I just the hard work that Carol Moon, the woman who runs the organization, puts in kind of is mind-boggling. So that's how I chose them, and I'll probably keep it pretty local at first. Even working with Animal Project, I see other organizations doing similar work, and I know what they're doing is just as important. Yeah. So there's so many. There's just so many places whose work I think is doing good.
Yeah, I think it's admirable that you're giving back to the community. And it's great that you start with the local community. You can, keep it local. But yeah, kudos.
And I guess also in choosing, I'm going to stick to the smaller organizations. Not that the larger ones aren't any less important. I think a lot of times the smaller ones need it more.
Right, because they don't have as much visibility or as much visibility as the bigger ones. They are larger. Yeah, no, that's good. And I'm sure they appreciate that. So, do you have any tips for other new sellers to Etsy?
I would say I definitely read all the Etsy materials that are online, and there are a lot. But I think it'll avoid problems in the process.
Yeah.
I guess in retrospect, I would have had more conversations with more of the experienced Etsy sellers. I think it just helps keep things smoother when you're setting up everything.
Yeah.
Be patient.
Yes, patient.
Go on YouTube if you need to learn something, or I guess just ask. The people on Etsy are so willing to communicate.
Yeah. Now, if there's someone who's listening to this podcast and they're kind of on the fence about selling on Etsy, what would you say to that person?
I would say if you're passionate enough about it, then do it. If you're not, then if you're already hesitant, you may end up being more hesitant.
Okay.
But if you have the passion to drive it, then go for it.
Okay. Great.
So I think that's what it takes. because you're not going to make all sorts of money off the bat.
No.
I think those stories are few and far between. I think it's more persistence, getting your name out there, having good customer service. I think it's a build up. So if you're passionate about what you're doing, then you'll be okay with, the waiting and the patient needing to be patient.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely, for most people, a slow build up, and it does take patience. I think patience is key. Hardly anyone comes out making, the big bucks in the beginning. But patience, I think, is what fuels the success. I mean, not patient. Well, no, not patience. I meant passion. Passion fuels your success, because if you're passionate about what you're doing and you enjoy it and you just stay at it, I think if you're willing to do it sorry, I'm taking over your question now. I think if you're willing to do it for free, then go ahead and do it on Etsy, because then you won't mind when you don't see the returns as, right away in the beginning. And then when they do come in, it's just icing on the cake.
That's a good way to put it. Because I would do this for free anyway, for friends or family, or just for myself.
Yeah. And you did.
Yeah. So then when the sales come in, it is the icing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brooke, for talking with me today.
Well, thank you, Joma. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Again, Brooke's Etsy shop is Earth, Water, Soul, and that's EARTHWATERSOL. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.